Malaysia strongly condemns the latest Israeli attack on Gaza Strip. And Vladimir Putin agrees to halt attacks on Ukraine energy targets. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Brendan Lepol. Starting with the headlines, Malaysia strongly condemns Israel's latest attack on the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim said Malaysia will continue to submit protests through leadership engagements and international platforms, such as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, the United Nations, UN, and the UN Security Council, UNSC.
Sistem tatanan dunia ini sudah rusak. Keganasan itu diizinkan. Jadi Malaysia tentu mengutuk keras dan akan berikan bantuan yang kita mampu, kebajikan, kemanusiaan. Tetapi ini sangat dikesalkan bulan Ramadan yang mulia tidak ada langsung ke peri kemanusiaan. Jadi kita doa mudah-mudahan Allah Taala melindungi keluarga, mangsa dan menjuri rahmat ke atas roh syuhada.
The Prime Minister also condemned the killing and violence conducted by the Israeli forces on 8 humanitarian workers from the Consultative Council for Islamic Organizations, MAPIM, in Gaza. Israeli forces launched an attack on the Gaza Strip early Tuesday morning, killing more than 320 people and injuring hundreds of others, despite an ongoing ceasefire agreement. Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed in a call with U.S. counterpart Donald Trump Tuesday to halt attacks against Ukrainian energy targets, but refused a full ceasefire unless the West halts all military aid for Kyiv. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky said he backed a 30-day truce on energy infrastructure after more than 3 years of grinding war. The highly anticipated more than 90-minute conversation failed to produce the breakthrough that Trump has been pushing for since his return to the White House in January. Trump hailed the call as good and productive and insisted he had an understanding with Putin to quickly work towards a complete ceasefire and a wider settlement to the 3-year-old war. The White House said broader truce talks will begin immediately in West Asia and cited the huge upside if Moscow and Washington repairs ties. Russia said Putin had already ordered his military to pause strikes against Ukrainian energy targets for 30 days. But the Kremlin made it clear that it was far off accepting the full 30-day ceasefire that Washington had proposed and Kyiv had already accepted. The Kremlin statement insisted that the key condition for peace would be a complete cessation of Western military and intelligence support to Ukraine's embattled military. It also emphasized that Kyiv could not rearm or mobilize during any ceasefire. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Helsinki on Tuesday ahead of an official visit to Finland. Finnish President Alexander Stubb and Zelensky will discuss Finland's support for Ukraine, including steps to end Russia's war. The Ukrainian president is also expected to meet with Finnish defense industry companies, according to Zelensky's office statement. The visit comes as United States President Donald Trump had a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Finland's finance, defense and foreign ministers will participate in a presidential palace meeting later today, and Zelensky will also meet with Prime Minister Petteri Orpo and Parliament Speaker Jussi Halla-aho. According to the Finnish statement said, during his second visit to Finland since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Zelensky is accompanied by his wife, Olena Zelenska, who will visit local schools with Stubb's wife, Suzanne Enes Stubb. German and French leaders vowed on Tuesday to keep providing military aid to Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin called for a complete cessation of Western military support. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz spoke alongside visiting French President Emmanuel Macron, who said they will continue to support the Ukrainian army in its war of resistance against Russian aggression. Putin made the comments in a highly anticipated phone call with President Donald Trump, telling the US leader that the conflict in Ukraine could only be resolved if the West halts military and intelligence support for Ukraine. They also agreed to a halt in Russian attacks against Ukrainian energy targets, but fell far short of securing a full ceasefire. Scholz said the halt can be a first step toward a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. However, he emphasized that the next step must be a complete ceasefire and as quickly as possible. Macron insisted that the objective must remain the same: to have a measurable and verifiable ceasefire, as well as a solid and lasting peace, and the guarantees that go with it. In another development, French President Emmanuel Macron said Tuesday that France planned to increase orders for Rafale fighter jets, adding the country will have to get ready to defend itself if it wants to avoid war. European countries, including France, have been seeking to boost defense spending and ramp up production of weapons in the face of possible US security disengagement and Russian aggression. Speaking during a trip to a military base in Luxeuil-les-Bains in the country's east, Macron said the Air and Space Force would benefit from more orders from the warplanes produced by French aerospace company Dassault Aviation. Last year, the country's Air Force had 108 Rafale jets, and the Navy had 41 such warplanes. France was due to receive 56 additional aircraft before Macron's announcement. Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu has recently said it is necessary to acquire 30 more Rafale warplanes. The site in Luxeuil-les-Bains will, by 2035, become the first base to receive the next version of the Rafale. He said the state would invest nearly 1.5 billion euros to adapt the base. In other news, the U.S. National Archives on Tuesday released the final batch of files related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, a case that still fuels conspiracy theories more than 60 years after his death. The move follows an executive order issued by President Donald Trump in January directing the unredacted release of the remaining files related to the assassination of Kennedy, his brother, former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. The National Archives has released millions of pages of records over the past decades relating to the assassination of then-President Kennedy in November 1963. However, thousands of documents had been held back at the request of the Central Intelligence Agency and Federal Bureau of Investigation, citing national security concerns. The Warren Commission that investigated the shooting of the president determined that it was carried out by a former Marine sharpshooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone. But that formal conclusion had done little to quell speculation that a more sinister plot was behind Kennedy's murder. The slow release of the government files over the past decades has added fuel to various conspiracy theories. In the scramble to comply with Trump's order, the U.S. Justice Department ordered some of its lawyers who handle sensitive national security matters to urgently review records from the assassination. A White House official said the documents would be released on Tuesday in the afternoon through the National Archives. Still to come, Honduras plane crash victims recovered, survivors remain in hospital. Colombian President Gustavo Petro took to the Bolivar Square in Bogota to address thousands of government supporters who gathered on Tuesday to show their backing of government-proposed health and labor reforms. Petro supporters had previously marched through the streets of Bogota before gathering near the Congress building, waving Colombian flags and carrying banners with the president's picture. The call for mobilization followed significant hurdles faced by the Labour Reform Bill in Congress. During his address, Pedro doubled down on his call for a national referendum in order for voters to weigh in on his embattled reforms amid a lack of support for the proposals in the country's legislature. Pedro said it is up to the Senate of the Republic to vote to allow the people to speak, as it is up to the people to decide, and the time has come to decide. He explained that he considers the proposal for a referendum is a fundamental. The long-stalled health sector reform aims to strip insurers of power and expand access to healthcare, while the labour reform would reduce working hours and boost overtime pay. The bodies of 12 victims of a plane crash in Honduras were recovered, and 3 of the 5 survivors remain in hospital, one of them being a French resident in the Central American country who is in stable condition. A plane crashed just off the Caribbean coast of Honduras on Monday night, minutes after taking off from Roatan Island, leaving just 5 survivors. According to the country's transport minister, the wreckage of the small Jetstream aircraft operated by Honduran airline Lanza was found about 1 kilometer off the island's coast. Local media reported the passengers included a U.S. national, a French national, who's stable in a hospital in San Pedro Sula, northern Honduras, along with 2 other survivors. Roatan, the largest of the Bay Islands just off the Honduran coast, is a popular tourist attraction and famed for its vibrant coral reefs. Peru's government declared a state of emergency in the capital Lima on Monday, while it also deployed soldiers to the streets to help quell the recent surge of violence that claimed the life of a popular singer. The crime wave, including a jump in extortion rackets, prompted President Dina Boluarte to declare that she would like to see murderers face the death penalty, even though Peru only allows execution for convicted traitors. The 30-day emergency decree applies to Lima as well as in neighboring Callao province and grants authorities additional powers to deploy the military to combat lawlessness. The death of prominent cumbia musician Paul Flores early Sunday sparked outrage after the bus he was travelling in came under fire from unknown armed assailants. Flores died after he was shot, according to police. The government moves on Monday follow weeks of escalating violence, blamed on criminal groups that often target businesses, including transport companies, even as authorities have shouted recent gang arrests. And in other news, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams returned to Earth in a SpaceX capsule on Tuesday, 9 months after their faulty Boeing Starliner craft upended what was to be a week-long stay on the International Space Station. Their return caps a protracted space mission that was fraught with uncertainty and technical troubles.
27th, 2022.
Wilmore and Williams, 2 veteran NASA astronauts and retired U.S. Navy test pilots, had strapped inside their Crew Dragon spacecraft along with 2 other astronauts and undocked from the orbiting laboratory of the ISS at 1:05 a.m. Eastern Time to embark on a 17-hour trip to Earth. The 4-person crew, formerly part of NASA's Crew 9 astronaut rotation mission, re-entered Earth's atmosphere around 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Wilmore and Williams were then shut into the capsule for 2 hours of final pressure, communications and seal tests. The astronaut pair had launched into space as Starliner's first crew in June for what was expected to be an 8-day test mission. But issues with Starliner's propulsion system led to cascading delays to their return home. The mission has captured the attention of U.S. President Donald Trump, who upon taking office in January, called for a quicker return of Wilmore and Williams. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, a close advisor to Trump, echoed his call for an earlier return. After the splashdown, the astronauts will be flown to their crew quarters at the space agency's Johnson Space Center in Houston for several days of health checks, per routine for astronauts' returns, before NASA flight surgeons prove they can go home to their families.
400 meters.
Europol on Tuesday warned that artificial intelligence AI is turbocharging organized crime. with advances like quantum computing only poised to make things worse. Europol Executive Director Catherine de Boll described the report as a, quote, wake-up call for law enforcement. In its report laying out the threats posed by organized crime, the European Police Organization said criminals had seized on the opportunities offered by AI as a catalyst to accelerate their activities. She said rapid technological advancements are reshaping how crime is organized, executed, and concealed. Police added that these shifts are making organized crime more dangerous, posing an unprecedented challenge to security across the EU and its member states. The use of AI and other technologies are helping criminals across the whole of their portfolio, from drug and human trafficking to cybercrime and identity theft. Europol noted that the very qualities that make AI revolutionary, accessibility, versatility, and sophistication, have made it an attractive tool for criminals. And still on AI, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang on Tuesday revealed fresh details about the company's newest artificial intelligence chip and other advancement at its annual software developer conference GTC 2025. The company announced the new Isaac GR00T N1, the world's first open humanoid robot foundation model and simulation frameworks to speed robot development.
Founder and CEO, Jensen Huang.
The Newton prototype, an open-source physics engine for robotics, was also brought onto the stage. The Newton is an open-source, extensible physics engine being developed by NVIDIA, Google DeepMind, and Disney Research to advance robot learning and development. Huang also announced new chips, including its next GPU chip, Blackwell Ultra, which will be available in the second half of this year and feature more memory than the current generation of its flagship chip, Blackwell, meaning it can support larger AI models. He said NVIDIA's chips have two main purposes: helping AI systems respond smartly to a huge number of users and giving those responses as fast as possible. Huang argued that NVIDIA's chips are the only ones that can do both. Chinese luxury electric vehicle brand Tika on Tuesday unveiled a new SUV with autonomous driving technology as domestic automakers race to put hands-free cars on the road. The Tika 9X comes fitted with L3-ready capabilities, which allow drivers to take their hands off the wheel but require them to stay ready to intervene. Geely-owned Tika will debut the new SUV at the Shanghai Auto Show next month, with deliveries slated for the second half of this year. The company said the Tika 9X will be equipped with a new G-Pilot system, which uses artificial intelligence to avoid obstacles and locate empty parking spots. The announcement comes after Tesla last month said it had started offering advanced self-driving functions for its cars in China. The functions described, including autopilot on city streets, are similar to those the company offers in the United States, which are meant to be used under driver supervision. Chinese automaker BYD, a top rival for domestic EV brands, also recently announced that it would introduce advanced self-driving technology for nearly all its cars. Still to come in sports, Club World Cup trophy arrives in the United States. Stay tuned.
Sebuah program Buang Bicara berkonsepkan podcast.
Ramai atlet yang berjaya, dia bagus semua benda tapi dia tak hebat kepada sesuatu tu.
Perbincangan isu-isu semasa sukan tempatan dan antarabangsa. Ikuti diskusi santai bersama Mior Adalan, Nini Ibrahim dan Syairul Islam serta tetamu jemputan di studio. Sportcast setiap Jumaat 3.30 minit petang di saluran OK dan Sukan RTM.
And in sports, Atlanta welcomed FIFA's Club World Cup trophy at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Sunday during the Cup's tour. The trophy, designed in collaboration with luxury jewelry brand Tiffany & Co. and unveiled last year, consists of gold-plated moving parts and include iconic imagery portraying the sport's rich history, as well as the names of all of FIFA's 211 member associations.
In general, I'm very excited because it's the first time, will be the first World Cup in the history for the clubs, and it's here. In this case in Atlanta, but in all around USA, and will be a great experience because it's the first time all the teams, not about friendly matches, it's about competitions, about lift this trophy. Then will be a great experience for everybody.
The trophy also features engravings in 13 different languages as well as Braille. Next year's inaugural tournament will include 32 of the most successful clubs across the globe, with some of the biggest European, South American, African and Asian teams taking part. The International Olympic Committee kicked off its session in Olympia, site of the Asian Games, on Tuesday that will culminate with the election of a new president on Thursday. Outgoing President Thomas Bach, in his speech at the Olympic Academy near the ancient stadium, made only a fleeting reference to Thursday's key vote, where 7 candidates will take a shot at world sport's most powerful and influential job. The IOC is the world's wealthiest multi-sports organization with revenues of about $7 billion per 4-year cycle. The candidates are International Cycling Chief David Lapation, current IOC Vice President Juan Antonio Samaranch Jr., World Athletics Chief Sebastian Coe, multiple Olympic swimming champion Kirsty Coventry, who is Zimbabwe's Sports Minister, and Prince Faisal Al Hussein of Jordan, International Gymnastics Federation head Morinari Watanabe, and Olympic newcomer and multi-millionaire Johan Eliash, who heads the International Ski and Snowboard Federation, complete the lists of candidates. The new president is elected on an 8-year term with the possibility of re-election to a second 4-year term for a maximum of 12 years in total. And in tennis, the Professional Tennis Players Association, PTPA, has filed a lawsuit against the sport's governing bodies, accusing them of anti-competitive practices and a disregard for player welfare. The PTPA, co-founded by Novak Djokovic in 2019 to give players more power over their careers and earnings, said on Tuesday that after years of good faith efforts to reform professional tennis, it had been forced to take legal action. In a statement, it said that along with more than a dozen players, including Nick Kyrgios, the PTPA had filed papers in a New York court against the ATP Tour, the WTA Tour, and the International Tennis Federation, ITF, and the International Tennis Integrity Agency, ITIA, describing the various governing bodies as a cartel. The PTPA accuses them of paying artificially low compensation to professional tennis players and imposing a draconian ranking system that forces them to compete in certain tournaments. It also calls the schedule unsustainable, says players are made to play in extreme heat and often in the early hours of the morning, that tennis balls chosen by the tournaments are a factor in causing chronic injuries, and that players' privacy rights are being abused by random drug tests. Prior to filing the lawsuit, the PTPA said it met with more than 250 players across the tours, including the majority of the men's and women's top 20. Serbia's 24 times Grand Slam champion Djokovic has been a fierce advocate for change to the organization of tennis, insisting lower-ranked players get a bad deal. Meanwhile, the ATP accused the PTPA of choosing division and distraction and having no meaningful role in the sport. The ATP, in a statement, strongly reject the premise of the PTPA's claims, believe the case to be entirely without merit, and will vigorously defend their position. The WTA defended its record of growing women's tennis, describing the lawsuit as, quote, baseless. Prior to filing the lawsuit, the PTPA said It met with more than 250 players across the tours, including the majority of the men's and women's top 20. The ITIA, which manages the sport's anti-doping and anti-corruption program, responded saying, any credible international sport requires robust anti-doping and anti-corruption programs, and we are proud of their role in contributing to a clean and fair sport. Quote unquote. Serbia's 24-time Grand Slam champion Djokovic has been a fierce advocate for change to the organization of tennis, insisting that the revenues generated by the sport are not fairly shared out to players. And moving on to cycling, Stage 2 of the APSA Cape Epic on Tuesday saw both overall leaders from the men and women's categories maintain their leads following the longest time trial in Cape Epic history. In the men's category, Scott SRAM MTB Racing Swiss duo of Nino Schurter and Filippo Colombo finished second on the day, but maintained their overall lead. Team Buf Megamo 1's duo of Belgian Wout Alleman and Czech Martin Stoschek began the day sitting in 12th place, but a strong performance late in Tuesday's stage saw them take the stage win in a time of 2 hours and 13 minutes, taking them up to 8 in the overall standings. Team Villiers Vitoria's Italian duo of Luca Braidot and Simone Avondetto finished the 66-kilometer stage in third. In the women's category, Toyota specialized Annika Langvord from Denmark and Sofia Gomez Villafane from Argentina dominated once more after winning the prologue and the first stage. The duo finished the stage in a time of 2 hours, 43 minutes and 14 seconds to extend the overall lead with their third win in a row. Cannondale ISB Sports' Monica Juliana Calderon Martinez, Colombia, and Tessa Cortecas, Netherlands, finished second on the day to move up to third in the overall standings. Efficient Infinity SCB Strams Vera Luce, Namibia, and Alexis Skada, USA, finished the day in third spot but retained second position in the overall standings. And that's it from us this afternoon. A reminder of our top story. Malaysia strongly condemns latest Israeli attacks on Gaza Strip. Till then, I'm Brandon Lepol, Malaysia Madani, from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching. Take care.